Welcome to TEP Talks, Episode 8. TEP Talks is a new service provided by the TEP Foundation, Inc. TEP Foundation, Inc. is the 88-year-old charitable arm of Tau Epsilon Phi Fraternity. TEP Foundation is a nonprofit New York State-registered 501c3 whose mission statement it is to provide scholarship, award, and education to our valued undergraduate and alumni brotherhood. TEP Talks are used as a platform to educate, promote, and explore the accomplishments of Tau Epsilon Phi Fraternity's most distinguished alumni. That said, our eighth guest is former Consul Bud Schiff. Bud, how are you?
Good afternoon, Jason. How are you? And by the way, let me thank you for the great job you're doing as the president of the foundation.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm so glad you're here to participate on the show. And hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a better understanding of your life and your history and all of your accomplishments within the fraternity.
Great.
So let's start with something easy. What is your background? So where did you grow up and what did you study?
I grew up in Forest Hills, Queens, New York, a borough of the city of New York. And I grew up there and I went to public schools all the way through. I graduated from Forest Hills High School in 1960. And from there, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I graduated from there in 1964 with a degree, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. I also went through the Navy ROTC program at Chapel Hill. And so when I graduated, coincident with that graduation, I was commissioned as an ensign in the U.S. Navy. And from there, I was sent over and did 4 combat tours back to back in Vietnam in 1965 and 1966. I stayed active in the Navy and I retired from the Navy 23 years later in 1986, having attained the rank of full captain in the Navy, which is equivalent to a colonel in the Army. From there, I went into the insurance business. And over the years that I was involved in the insurance business, I became a senior executive officer and head of all insurance operations and a member of the Board of Trustees, first at the Mutual Life Insurance Company of New York in the mid-'80s. And then after I took early retirement from there, I became the chief executive officer of the largest subsidiary of New York Life, and that was in the mid-'90s to the mid-2000s. And then I had to retire because of age. At that time, they had a maximum age for executive officers retiring. And then I got recruited and became a member of and am now a managing director in the global consulting firm of Alvarez and Marsal.
So before we go too much into your accomplished professional career, let's talk a little bit more about TEP first.
Good.
So why did you want to join TEP? What was it about TEP that stood out to you as opposed to other fraternities on the campus?
Well, when I got down to Chapel Hill in 1960, they had a rushing period, and there were really 3 predominantly Jewish fraternities at that time. There was EBT, there was Pi Lam, and there was TEP. So I went and during the rushing period, I went and looked at all of the 3 fraternities. And TEP to me really stood out because I just thought the connection I had with the Brotherhood there, about a third of the Brotherhood, by the way, came from the Northeast, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So there were a lot of people I had in common. This was a whole new culture for me going down south, having grown up and never been out of New York until that period of time. At any rate, I had a real connection, I thought, with the Brotherhood. They were very, very active on the campus. And it just seemed to me this would be the right place for me. And they had great, and I liked the TEP ideals. And so that's what I joined.
One more question going backward. So you graduated from Forest Hills High School. Can you say what year that was again?
1960.
So my dad graduated in 1958.
From Forest Hills?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
How interesting.
So when you got to Chapel Hill and you liked the group of guys and you pledged and you were initiated, do you have other fond memories once you were inside and you were a brother of the organization as an undergraduate? Do you have any kind of fond memories? Funny, could be anything that you're choosing.
Well, I do. I thought it was a great fraternity. They like to work hard and they like to play hard, and both of those things appealed to me. And one of the things I liked is the Brotherhood. Most of the Brotherhood was very active on the campus. We had a lot of athletes. We had a lot of political people. We had the president of the student body. So it was really a very, very enjoyable and I thought good networking group to be with, and I made lifetime friends out of that. So, you know, we have had for the 60s era, we've been running annual reunions. And we do it every year now for more than 50 years. The group is shrinking by, transition, and it so happens. But the fact is, we still get together at least once a year. We try to tie it into either a basketball game or a football game that's down there. But it's great. And so these are lifetime friends that we've made. And it's the families. When we get together, it's usually the families. So the wives and the children and the grandchildren are all part of this whole family group that we have together, and the connection is all TEP.
And tell me what undergraduate positions you held in the chapter, and then after, when you graduated, any of alumni positions you held as well.
Okay, well, while I was in the chapter, I mean, the two principal positions. My junior year, I was the chancellor of the chapter, which is an interesting time there, and we had about 60 members and pledges during that year, and that's the way we were. And I was also elected to, I'm not sure how it is on other campuses, but we had a interfraternity honor court, and I was a judge on that honor court for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so now we'll go forward talking about you and graduating. So once you graduated, as you were saying, you went into the professional world. Can you tell us more about that? And could you possibly talk about how TEP may have enhanced or led to your success in your professional career?
Sure. Well, when I graduated, the next several years I spent overseas with the U.S. Navy. But when I came back, then I got back active again, and I got elected to the Grand Council in, I think, the early 70s. And I'd been a member of the Grand Council for well over a decade. And then in 1983, I got elected as Consul by the Grand Council. And I served for 2 years through 1985 in that. It was an interesting time. We had a lot of chapters back in those days, a lot of successful chapters back in those days. During my tenure, we did a lot of exploration, and we didn't have any chapters on the West Coast. And so we did a little exploration to see whether or not there was any possibility. The one we really focused on, although it never got concluded during my term, was UCLA. But it was, another round of great lifetime friends that I made.
Sure.
People from all over that were TEPs that were part of the Grand Council. So, I got more certainly out of being on the Grand Council than I gave back to the Grand Council.
Sure. And talking more about your professional career, can you think of anything that was exciting about the career that you chose, and then possibly what was challenging during your career?
Well, my whole life I'm a networker. I love to work with people. I love to help people. So my whole career in the insurance business, a lot of that has to do with helping people. But I rose up from, just being in sales into management, into senior leadership, until I ultimately ran 2 companies that were out there. And a lot of it came, I think, from, or at least it was enhanced by, the culture that I learned as being a TEP in undergraduate, and certainly enhanced by all the networking I did when I was on the Grand Council. I mean, we really had some terrific people that sat on that body.
And what notorieties, awards, or honors have you ever received?
Well, I've gotten almost every honorarium you can get from the insurance industry. I was president of the Lobbying Association. I've got lots of high honors from that. The Navy, I was a highly decorated Navy officer, a lot of combat ribbons and things that I got from that. So I got more awards than I can hang up on my wall. So
that's great.
It was all good.
And so beyond the friendships and being consul and having many accomplishments within Tau Epsilon Phi yourself, how would you say TEP has impacted, contributed, or influenced your life overall?
Well, certainly through the friendships that I've made. I made great friendships during my undergraduate days, a group that, as I mentioned, I still stay in touch with today, even though it's a dwindling group in size, just by attrition. And then made lots of good friends that I still stay in touch with on the Grand Council. And in fact, now there's 7 past consuls from the 60s and 70s era. And we have a bi-weekly virtual meeting So every 2 weeks we get together, we just kind of see how each other is doing, how our families are doing. We've really become a very close-knit group. So again, these are, lifetime friendships that got made, and it wouldn't have happened without TEP.
And tell us a little bit more. So when you were consul, at the time when you were consul, can you tell me what that was like, and possibly any struggles that may have occurred at the time that you had to step up and fix or solve? Can you think of anything?
Well, yeah, it was 40 years ago, and we did have our challenges. I know the consuls today have their challenges. One of my objectives was to see if we could expand from the East Coast to the West Coast, as I said.
Good objective.
We had a number of chapters back in those days. Remember, this was the 80s. So we had a number of chapters back in those days that thought, well, why can't we take in female brothers, and that became a challenge as well. There was a couple amendments to the Constitution to allow for brotherhood to be something other than just men, and we defeated that right down the line. A couple of chapters that I had to visit because they were actually initiating females into the chapter.
Oh, really? Huh.
So, yeah, so that was kind of interesting, and we had the same financial issues that everybody has today. So, some chapters were very supportive of the national, other chapters really wanted to be independent of the national, but overall they all believed in the ideals of the national.
And so if I told you in 40 years nothing has really changed,
nothing has changed. It all remains, history never changes, it all remains the same.
Again, as consul, can you tell me a little bit about who was executive director at the time?
We went through a couple, but Sid Suntag was still there when I got involved. And actually, Sid is the guy that recruited me to go under the Grand Council in the first place, and we were very close. And then we had 3 or 4 from the time that I went on the Grand Council to the time I was the consul. We had 3 or 4. Mike Ivers was the executive director when I was the consul.
And he's only 91 today.
He is, and still pumping away.
Yeah. He sent me an email the other day.
Because I took good care of him while I was there.
So talking about Sydney, even though this is supposed to be about you, we just restarted the Sydney Suntag Scholarship.
Yes, I'm happy to participate in that.
And I wanted you to give us a little bit of food for thought. Maybe if you could talk just a small little blurb more about Sydney and tell us what impression he had made on you, or what impression you saw him make on others, since he had such a meaningful impact while he was around.
Sydney was really a unique individual. He had an Army background. He came out of the Army. He was very military in status, but he, beyond anybody that I've ever met before or since then, had a memory for people that was just incredible. He could tell you anybody all throughout the national TEP. He knew everybody. It was just incredible that he did that. And I'm not the only one he had reached out to recruit to join the Grand Council. But it was his dedication, his love, his whole life was built around the love of the fraternity. And he was a fantastic, he was the primary writer of the history that we had back in those days. And he dedicated his life to supporting this fraternity. And he got us through some very bad times that we probably wouldn't have done with somebody else. But he was responsible for that. These past consuls that I talked about, we all went down to Atlanta. I think it was, I don't remember, it was his 100th birthday or whatever. And we went out to his grave just to see he and his widow out there, and it was a very moving experience.
I'll tell you a small funny story, and then we'll get back to you. So my dad was a TEP at NYU at Epsilon Gamma, and he graduated in 1958. Unfortunately, he just passed away. But anyway,
I'm sorry to hear that. When
we went to and I wasn't in the fraternity yet, I wasn't even a candidate, but we were invited to go to the Grand Council meeting in Philadelphia. As we were in the room, when they took a break, my father had asked Lane, who was the consul at the time, that he couldn't believe that Sydney was still alive. And Lane said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, isn't that Sydney Suntag?" It was Don Ansbaugh, who had a shaved head and a mustache and a hat, that my father mistakenly thought was Sydney Suntag.
Oh,
but in
wow.
hindsight, had said to Lane, "Well, now that I think about it, you're right. He would be probably over 100." So
It's a fascinating story. I'm sorry I never got to meet your dad. And maybe I did, but I just don't remember.
no, you never did. You never did. You never
Yeah.
did, and that's okay. He was a great person. You guys would have had a lot to talk about, but it's okay. So to wrap up with you, as a distinguished alumni of TEP, what is your message to the Brotherhood?
Well, all I can say is, based on my own experiences, that I just hope you all take advantage of everything that TEP has to offer. It's got such a meaningful heritage, such a meaningful tradition, and just enjoy the camaraderie that it offers. And certainly, if you're a networker like I am, get to know the professional and social networking value that has to you. It's something that'll help you out throughout your life. And once you're a TEP, you're always a TEP. There's always a place for you, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And even now, when I go around the country, if I need to stop in someplace, there's always a TEP house with an open welcome. So I would encourage everybody to take advantage of everything that you have. This is not just a 4-year environment for you, it's a lifetime environment for you.
Well, that's an extremely powerful message that we're going to end on. And I wanted to thank you so much for your time. It was a real honor and a privilege to have you on the show. I also wanted to thank you for your service to the country, in addition to everything that you have done, will do, and continue to do for the fraternity. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. So if you are or know of any alumni who would like to participate on our podcast, please send an email to president@thetepfoundation.org. We want to highlight your accomplishments both within and outside of Tau Epsilon Phi. You can also find more information about the TEP Foundation, Inc. by going on the web to www.tep.org/foundation. You may also follow us on social media by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on Instagram, and or adding us on our Facebook page. Once again, thank you so much to former Consul Bud Schiff. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. It was my pleasure.